Hey guys, first, this is probably going to look like I filmed this on a potato. Uh, it's my webcam on my laptop, so it's not the best camera, but it is what it is, and things being what they are, we'll roll with it, so I apologize for the video quality. But I wanted to put a video out so that we had some direct instruction and you're not just looking at your books. Eventually, once my YouTube Live gets approved, we'll hopefully next week get a live session going where we'll have you guys log in and comment as the feed goes on so you can directly ask questions while the instruction's going on. But in the meantime, I'm just going to make this video so that we can talk a little bit about reality. And you guys had already done a little bit of a reading and done a homework on this, but I just want to reinforce the concept here about reality. So a couple of things. I'm going to obviously have to look at notes occasionally just to keep on track and make sure I'm covering the material in the order that the book covers it, just so you stay on track. But a few things that help us relate reality to one another. And this is a much deeper concept than I think we would originally think it would be, just thinking, well, what is reality and how do we share reality? But you guys have heard me enough times give the pizza analogy, where if I say, let's go get pizza, and you're thinking deep dish, that's your reality, is Chicago deep dish. And I'm thinking New York style, which is a thin crust. It can be a little soggy, it's not deep dish by any stretch of the imagination. That's my reality. So when we get to the point where reality is revealed, and I'm the maker of reality because I said let's go get pizza, when we get to where my reality is revealed to you, suddenly your reality is no longer reality, right? We had two separate realities in the mind, and connecting those two separate realities is actually a very complicated thing sociologically. And a lot of conflict that we see and a lot of issues that we see with people interpersonally is the breakdown of communicating one's reality to someone else's reality. How do we connect the gap between each person's perceived reality? Because in a lot of cases, perception is reality to the person, right? How a person perceives something is actually their reality. Now, I think from a philosophical perspective, we would all say that there is one actual reality, but the problem is that we all perceive that reality a little bit differently, right? So, for example, as far as reality goes, if I'm hungry and I didn't sleep well last night, I'm already coming with my own subjective opinions to whatever that reality is, and my subjective experience colors that reality, right? So if I'm hungry and I'm underslept, and someone says something that seems innocuous to me, right? It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? But if you're hungry and underslept, or I'm hungry and underslept, and another person isn't, two different perceptions of that event occur, right? The person that already has other things stressing them, like hunger and lack of sleep, is more likely to perceive that reality negatively than the person who maybe had a great experience. They just ate some bacon, they ate some buffalo chicken dip, they're good to go, right? They got a good night's sleep, maybe they got a Christmas present, boom. Their reality or their perception of reality is going to differ significantly from the person who has had a bad experience leading up to whatever the event is that we're analyzing through the lens of reality. However, before we even get there, so that was all preface, all right? A few things help us relate our realities to one another. And the first thing is shared language. All right, so shared language, and just so I can reference, that's on page 149 in your book. All right, so shared language, the whole reason you can understand me in this video is that I am speaking a language that you comprehend, right? If you had no experience with the English language, you wouldn't really comprehend what I'm saying. Now, you could see some of my body language, and you could possibly infer a little bit of the tone of what I'm saying, but you can't really tell the message or the reality of what I am saying. So the idea that we have shared oral language really helps us communicate reality to one another, or at least attempt to communicate reality to one another. So that's a big advantage, is that we have shared language. Another thing is shared knowledge. So the more shared knowledge we have on a topic, any given topic, the more likely it is we'll be able to communicate reality accurately to one another, reality as it is. So if you have very little construction experience or very little home improvement experience, and I say to you, boy, I really need some drywall anchors. That's my reality, right? If you have no experience, you might be thinking, what are drywall anchors and what do you do with those, right? And if I ask you to go get me some drywall anchors, you might have a hard time doing that. So your reality, you have no knowledge on which to base my perception of reality, right? Or think of something precision, right? Like a pilot, for example. Someone who's a pilot, they can communicate their reality of what's occurring in the plane at any given moment. They can point to any instrument in the plane and say, this is what this says, this is what this tells me, and because of that, this is what I need to do. And they also know, like, reality to them is turbulence, not a very big deal, right? Turbulence isn't the problem at all. That's their reality because they have knowledge and they have experience that teaches them that. But I bet your first time in an airplane when you hit turbulence, you might have thought, oh, what's going on? Is the plane going to crash? Are we going down? Is this normal? And so your reality might be something different. But two pilots experiencing turbulence, if they have shared knowledge, they can communicate that and about that in a much more precise way that they both understand, right? So they can explain maybe levels of turbulence or reasons for turbulence. They can even predict when they're going to hit turbulence based on weather patterns. So shared knowledge and shared language really help us as we communicate our reality to one another. So moving now into what we had covered, and that's the 3 steps for constructing reality. All right. So this is something where it's a strange concept to think of, that reality is constructed. I think we tend to think reality is, right? It exists. But really the person telling the story is giving you a perception of reality, right? So as we go through the steps of constructing reality, the first of the 3 steps is externalization. And just to give you a reference point, I think that's 2 pages over. Let me flip the page here. That's page 152, all right, in the 3 steps to constructing reality. So the first step is externalization, right? So I'm just going to read a quick sentence from the book. I know you can read it yourself, but I don't want to expound upon it. And the explanation here is people create society through an ongoing process of physical and mental activity, right? So part of reality is actual physical reality. Like this is a laptop right here. I'm touching it. And it's cool. People can actually make laptops and then make them reality. They're creating an actual physical thing, right? And through physical activity of exertion, we can make a laptop. But then also mental activity can also be an aspect of creating reality as well, through externalization. All right. So then the second one is objectification. So I'm going to read the sentence and then expound. Through this process, social arrangements come to seem objectively real. Society appears separate from human creation and instead seems natural, inevitable, and out of people's control. Right? So as we're seeing what's going on currently, right, just to address the elephant in the room, this is something that seems like is out of human control and part of just the social arrangement. Even just think of the restrictions that are going on right now. Right? we're meeting virtually right now. All right, so we're not in a classroom, and there are restrictions on whether or not people can meet, where people can meet, how many people can meet, right? And it seems like all of that is outside of our control. But if you take a step back, right, even these social arrangements right now that we're currently experiencing are someone's creation, right? We may have, objectively, we might think, well, this is outside of our control, this is natural, this is the norm, and that's part of a process called normalcy bias, which we talked about. But really, these norms were created, right? They came down as dictates through Governor Tom Wolf and also recommendations from President Trump, and these people have shaped or created what is a new social norm that seems natural and really out of our control, right? So that's an example of this in action. All right, and then the third is internalization, and I'll read the sentence and then expound. And it says, this is the complex process through which we learn our society's culture and establish our view of the world. Through this process, humans come to be influenced by their own creations. They are social products. For example, your friend influences you. You feel obliged to comply with specific expectations associated with this relationship. Right? So this is kind of where we had talked about social norms before. This would be the process through which you arrive at social norms and navigate social norms. So reality is created first through externalization. A physical or a mental ideological product is made. All right, and it doesn't have to be a product. I'm speaking in broad terms here. Like an idea is made or created by someone. So, for example, even stylistically, let's say, Lady Gaga wore a meat dress several years ago. That could be a style that's created, meat dress, right? Or think back to the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, and that would be an example of where a new musical style and also new artistic styles and literature styles were created, and then people got on board with that, right? They created a product, so that would be the externalization, all right? And then now we're down to the bottom step of internalization, where we're making this thing our own reality. We're choosing whether or not to comply with social norms, what social norms to adapt to adjust to, and how to navigate the world of social interaction based on what we've learned and based on how we get feedback or responses from other individuals. So they're giving us feedback on what they want reality to be, and we're either adjusting or complying, or we're navigating the communication and conflict aspect of this, which we'll get to later in the chapter as far as when realities don't align in the internalization process. We'll have to talk about how to navigate that. But what I want you to get today, just summarizing this lesson up, right? I want you to get, first of all, that reality isn't as clear-cut as we would like to think. There is, I believe, that there is one objective reality, but we all have perceptions and we all have biases that we bring into that reality. So that gives us a different perception of reality. Not that reality is different, but that our perceptions of that reality are different. And that's just a sociological phenomenon. And we share reality with one another and our perceptions of reality because we have shared language and shared knowledge. Those two things, screen's reversed, so I keep moving my hands in the wrong direction. Those two things, shared knowledge and shared language, help us communicate our perceptions of reality. And then the three ways in which, or the three steps to creating reality are externalization, objectification, and internalization. And through those three steps, our perception of reality is created. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. And I look forward to hopefully in the coming days getting one of these going live, so like a live stream. All right. See you.